All right, welcome together at Grand. Our winter quarter, when it's too cold to be outside, or it might be, last time it was too wet to be outside. Today, I think it'd be too cold to be out here. So we're in here doing Bible short stories. And we're in the middle of Jonah. Good. And that's what we are doing today. We'll do the middle part of the book of Jonah. I would like to thank Sister Cindy, who was released from jury duty only minutes ago in order to come and help us here, and to Annette, who was hoping that Sister Cindy would be released from jury duty. So they are working together as a team. The sister support staff, we have Sister Patricia Doherty and Sister Kit Hamilton, who are helping us and will continue to help us as we proceed. Our co-teachers are Lori Joyce, who is here, and Maureen Bennett, who is right here, and Sally Kirsty, who is online managing the Zoomers. All right, I hope you have the text that we had from last week, and you can always use your own Bibles, but having a common text means you can write on it if you don't like to write in your Bible. And it also means that sometimes we don't have to stop and argue about where we are or what the words are and so forth. We have a common text, and the text I use for Hebrew Bible is a recent translation by Jews who are speaking modern Hebrew from Hebrew, as distinct from our Christian Jonahs, which have been through Hebrew and Greek and Latin and other things, then into English. And so the fresh translation is maybe a little bit more attuned to the original language. We have a couple of suggestions for the Zoomers, and in fact, one for us, so that you can be thinking about it as we get there. We're asking if the Zoom group would not blank their faces out. And the reason for that is because sometimes then you can have a Zoom group that has only one person in it because everybody else has shut their screen down. So if you don't mind not doing that, we can't, of course, prevent you from doing it. So anyway, stay tuned if you can do it. Suggestion also for the Zoomers, and then Sally can add, and Cindy or Annette. When we get to the point of the questions to talk about, don't feel you have to do them all or feel impelled to barrel through them. Sometimes it's better to spend more time on one question rather than to try to do, especially today, there are a lot of questions. Nobody has to report out, so don't anyone feel on the spot. It's fine if we don't get maybe chairs as good. Right, that's good, thanks. We're good. So reporting out is completely optional. When you do it, be sure that we know what you're talking about. So if you said, I want to make a comment on question 13, that's helpful to tell us, rather than just starting and we aren't quite sure what you're doing. The other thing, not so much for the Zoomers, but for the locals, the immediate group, it has been suggested that when we break into our small group, those who could easily walk into the hall and sit in the chairs out there, that would reduce the noise level in here. So if you're able easily to pop out into the hallway, there's 6 chairs out there, you could be your own group, and then we won't forget to invite you back. So you can be thinking about if you want to do that. All right. So, Cindy or Annette, do you have any, or Sally, any other, have I forgotten anything that we should say early?
No, just we won't have breakout rooms. We'll just meet as one group.
No, we'll have breakout groups.
There'll also be one Zoom group.
Oh, right, one Zoom group.
It depends on the number of people that come into Zoom. So,
And that,
right now, Barbara, we don't have very many.
okay, so it'll be one group. That's good.
Yeah.
And then who knows how the faces will look.
Yeah. And just if you want to improve on Zoom, if you want to improve your view, you can go to the view function in your dashboard
Up on the top.
up on the top in the upper right corner and select gallery, and then you'll be able to see everybody. And if you'd like to share a comment, if you can go down to the bottom of your dashboard where it says react and select the raised hand and hold it, keep it up there until Sister Barbara recognizes your question or your comments. And same for everybody in the room, hold it or hold your hand up if you don't want to use the icon so that we know you have a question or comment.
These are all the same.
Good, yes, handouts, be sure you have what you need there in the middle of the table. Good,
And this, here's one, honey.
right. Good. And we can easily make more. It's like being a 31 flavor, House of Pancakes. They're never gonna run out of pancakes. They'll make more as needed.
You need this.
Okay, good. Right, thank you. Good. We're set, right. I thought maybe as we start out to ask if briefly, anybody has anything they want to say about Jonah 1 that we did last week? To just do a little bit of transition. Did anyone have any new thought on Jonah that they didn't have last week?
Well, not a new thought, but I'm still amazed at the sailors. I didn't recognize the fact that there was this transformation in them. And so I keep thinking about what we thought they were like,
Right.
how they treated Jonah with such resistance. You know, they didn't want to throw him overboard, although the signs were that he was the cause of the storm. And then in the end, when the storm stopped, they became believers.
Right.
That still surprises me.
Good. And we could say they're unimportant because they vanished from the story after chapter 1, but they did well in chapter 1, better than maybe we thought they would do, which might be what the book is partly about. That's good. Any other
I
transitional
just have
comment?
a question. When did the Israelites start being called the Hebrews?
Oh, I don't know that.
Because he says I'm a Hebrew.
Right,
And
right.
Yeah.
So it is suggested, maybe truthfully or not, I don't know, that when Jews self-identify, they say, I'm a Hebrew, whereas others call them Israelites, or that sounds sort of neat and tidy to me. I don't know. But because we know that other people like Pharaoh sometimes called them Hebrews. So I don't know the answer to that question. It's a good one to
It's
notice.
probably not that important, but I just,
It's great to notice it though, he calls himself a Hebrew.
yeah.
But is it Israelites, Hebrews, and then Jews?
Yeah, they're all,
I know,
yeah, sort of the same.
Yes, but-
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, that's good.
Well, part of the transition.
And sometimes people call themselves by their tribal name, and they sometimes call themselves other things as well. And it's always worth noticing. One of the great mysteries in Bible studies is Jesus constantly or frequently calls himself the Son of Man. What does he mean by that? Why does he call himself that? Does he add new meaning to the expression, or did everybody but us know what it meant? And there are opinions about what it meant, but how people self-identify, you're right, is important to notice. One thing I noticed was that when we first met Jonah, when God was giving him the directions in the first 3 or 4 verses, it may have sounded like Jonah and God weren't well acquainted because Jonah didn't say anything back. But by the end of chapter 1, we learned that in fact, they did have a relationship. And of course, we're going to learn more about it as we go on. So again, watching it unfold over our shoulders and go back to think about it some more is often an important thing to do. Maybe the story is pretty much about the relationship between God and Jonah. Who knows?
There was one other thing that I noticed, actually it wasn't original to me, but the direction that Jonah seems to follow. He goes down to Joppa, he goes down into the hold of the ship, he goes down into the sea. So there's that sense of, you know, kind of darkness
Yes.
and almost disintegration
Right.
on the part of Jonah. I thought that was kind of interesting. It's good. It's a dark story
It's a dark story.
until a certain point.
So because I missed the first one, I have a question. So the Lord has directed Jonah to go to Nineveh, but he goes to Tarshish. So he basically disobeys God. God.
As far as he can do in as many steps down as he can go, and then to fall asleep, of course, is the ultimate way to ignore God, to say I was asleep and I didn't hear what you said. Okay, yes.
Something that I was thinking about is how Jonah was willing to sacrifice himself for these pagans, if you will, on the ship, but not for God, when God asked him to go.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. So maybe a question that we're seeing develop is Jonah, how's Jonah feeling toward God and why? Is it just the job he doesn't like, or is there more? So all of these are little clues to think about and pick up on. And part of the reason that we'll never exhaust the story is because at different times of our lives, we will have different ways of doing this. Okay, good. Let me just say a few things about the questions. I'm sorry, there are so many, but we'll do them fast. If any of you want to say something quick while we're doing this, feel free to signal, as the Zoomers have been advised, signal with your hand or your own hand or the rentable hand on the machine. And in here, speak up if you want to say something quick. And then you can see that some of these we will talk about, you will talk in small groups. So this is just to be sure that we haven't missed some big points. As chapter 1 ends, you've just already talked about the sailors. They should be feeling good because they have a new friend, a new divine friend, and they have given gifts, and they're presumably feeling okay about Jonah. They've thrown their cargo overboard, but they don't seem to complain about that. God appoints a large fish. Be asking yourself, and this is a small group question, what do you think God has in mind? Again, allow it to grow as the story expands. When we know that the fish swallows Jonah, is that a good thing or a bad thing? And again, allow your opinion to change if it wants to do that. In chapter 2, Jonah prays what seems like a long psalm. It has, you know, if you know the Psalms, and you all know them at least from the Sunday responsory psalm, Psalms are organized pretty much as this one is. And we'll talk about the Psalm text as we get there. But in Judaism, the suggestion is that Jonah's key moment is this chapter 2 when he's in the fish. That's when Jonah learns what he's going to learn and says what he's going to say. Christian tradition tends to think that the time in the fish isn't very important and that the important time is when Jonah gets out. So again, we can do both. You can read it both ways. It's important to be in the fish and it's important to be outside of the fish. For Jews, the fish is like being at the synagogue, a place of learning, a place of suffering, a place of having a good time, a place of talking to God, and so forth. So the synagogue, not to be confused with the temple, which is a place of sacrifice. So the synagogue is where if you're a Jew, you go to do a lot of other things. A couple of quick things. Again, I know you read this psalm, the prayer of Jonah, that sounds like a psalm. He says things like, God, I know you heard me. So I'm looking at verse 3 of chapter 2. You heard my voice. You cast me into the depths. as the waters overwhelmed me, I was swept away and sort of panicked. And then Jonah says to God, will I ever see you again, or is this the end for you and me? Will I ever see your temple again? Jonah is talking about going down into the depths of the water. Now, you in fact know he's inside the fish, so some of this water description doesn't quite fit. So that's one of the reasons. Pause. What?
But.
Say again.
I just have a comment on that.
Oh, good. Okay, sorry. Yes, I can comment.
Uh-huh. When I was reading it, what I got was that it was when he was in the sea before he got into the fish.
Okay, good.
Because for me, the fish came along as he's sitting on the bottom of the ocean and gets swept into the fish.
Yeah.
So all of this psalm is when he's in the, is reflecting on his time in the
Good.
water.
Okay, that's good. The stuff that I quoted is why Christian modern scholars say it doesn't fit very well, but Cindy has just solved that for them. So from the belly of Sheol, and Sheol is the name that the Hebrews give the underworld, whatever that is. So it's a place that you don't look forward to going, and you don't think once you're there, you're not going to get out. So it's not the same as our hell or purgatory, but it's sort of a holding tank forever, the underworld. So it's not a desirable place to be. He describes it some more, talking about weeds twining around his head. And then he thanks God for being lifted out, and is grateful that his prayer came before God. What I want us to be thinking about as you do the prayer is, what's the tone of it? Is Jonah, remember Jonah had said to God, first nothing, and then tells the sailors that he is not eager to do what he's been assigned to do. So is there a mood change here? Is Jonah placating God? Is Jonah sincere? The Jonah that you are experiencing, which is the Jonah that you are relating to, ask yourself how the psalm feels. Jonah promises a sacrifice. We know the sailors have already made a sacrifice. So don't dismiss the prayer as just blah, blah, blah. It's got a lot of good stuff in it. And it's up to us to figure out how Jonah is praying that. Is he placating God? Whatever. You think about that, and you can talk about it if you want to. Ordinarily, Jonah wouldn't want to be swallowed by a fish, but maybe compared to some other things, it's good trouble, better than he might have had. So you can think about that if you want to. Question 5, again, you do the tone. Is this praise, blame, accusation, complaint, and so forth? What does Jonah not describe? He doesn't talk about the fish chomping him down or digesting him. He doesn't talk about that. So again, the questions there are just to help you unpack the story carefully as you are doing. Question 8, which you can talk about in your small group if you want to do that. Jonah didn't say anything to God in chapter 1. Remember, he sort of tiptoed back out of the room silently at the beginning. And then he told the sailors about his relationship with God, but he still isn't talking to God until he gets into the fish. So how do you construe Jonah's words? Is it foxhole piety? And again, we all know that means that when you're in trouble, you develop a deep relationship with God because you're desperate. And it doesn't mean it's false, but it may mean that it's been on hold for a while. So is it just foxhole piety? I would be slow to be critical of foxhole piety. It's better than no piety at all. Is it an intimate friendship? What do you think about that? And there are no right and wrong answers on these. This is up to you and your Jonah to, and of course, God as you relate to God to think about. So as you're thinking about the relationship between God and Jonah, God doesn't say anything back here to Jonah. So there'll be conversation later, but it's not yet. How does the prayer end? And we all know this, whether you've had a good time or not, at the end, you always say, thank you. You know, if you go somewhere and you're leaving, even if you haven't had a good time, you thank them. Psalms almost always end with a thank you, even if the gift hasn't been delivered yet. There are hardly any Psalms that don't end with the petitioner saying, I know this is going to work out. Thanks so much for helping me. Again, we all know that's a strategy in itself. To thank is to buy some goodwill from the one that you want to help. So ask your Jonah if he's grateful or not. He sounds grateful. Sounds grateful. There are whole sets of commentaries who think the whole book is a satire. I don't myself think so. I find the prayer sincere at the moment. We'll know he has some other moods coming up, but he wouldn't be the last one to change moods when relating to God. So be paying attention to the Jonah that you are finding, because the Jonah that you're finding today as you do it is the Jonah that you need to be befriending. So a couple more things before we see what you want to do with this. Jonah promises sacrifice. He can't do it right then, of course, because he's inside the fish, but he says he will do it. So again, is this offering a gift? You know, I think fundraisers often have people sign up for things and then have to spend a lot of time reminding them that they promised to hand over some money. So Jonah promises sacrifice. Again, we've talked a little bit before when we did Cain and Abel about what it means to give a gift when you want something from the benefactor. And think about that from, again, your own point of view. We may be quick to think it's insincere. You know, when I'm desperate for something, I'll promise whatever to get what I want. I don't know if gifts mean that it was insincere. You know people that are gift givers and some that aren't. Sister Lorraine, I think of you as a gift giver, that there's something in the economy that you like to keep moving gifts around among your family and so forth. And my family, if they were here, would say, we've never gotten a thing from her. So again, it's a choice that we make. And it's an important thing to think about, I think, with God. Is it a gift? Is it a bribe? Is it a apology? Is it a whatever? Okay, now I want to talk a little bit about some, yes,
To
Margaret.
what extent, I mean, in terms of any of this, because is culture a factor? I mean,
Definitely.
that whole sense of relationship with God involved that response.
Right.
So I can't escape that.
No, it does. It's crucial. It's how they relate with God. And as you know, a lot of sacrifices are big and complex and involve a lot of plumbing. And once the temple is destroyed, because the temple is the normal place to sacrifice, once the temple is destroyed, they can't do it anymore. And that is a crisis for Jews who feel unable to do what God pretty clearly in scripture asks them to do. So it's really important to do it. The question is, what is it that they think they're doing when they do it? And what is it that we think when we do our equivalent of it, whether it's liturgy or prayer or whatever else it might be? What are we doing when we offer gifts? Sometimes we know, others, not ourselves, that they're little bribes. Is that what this is? So it's, again, we're thinking about one of the things I like in this story, certain things that we may think we're over, like I would never do that, where all of a sudden you think, oh, I might still do that on occasion if I want something badly enough. Okay. I want to look at visual art for a minute. We have 3 slides, if God wills it, here in our technology. Okay, and I want to start with that one. Jonah is going to come out of the fish in just a minute, and there he is. The fish opens its mouth. Jonah, you can see he's turned around because if my slides that I have lost showed them putting him in head first very carefully. And so inside the fish, Jonah has turned around, and we know a name for that is conversion. So out he comes, and that Jonah is feeling how? Again, you can talk about it in your group if you want to. That's one possibility. Does that figure remind you of anybody?
Resurrection.
Yes, the resurrection. Even though it's hardly ever pictured in art, the ascension is, the resurrection isn't. We get it, that looks like the resurrected Jesus, the way we would think of him as looking. An alternative to that one, which is my favorite Jonah slide, if God wills it.
That comes to mind is liberated.
Yes, liberated. Okay, here is another Jonah. And this is by the artist Albert Herbert, who has some wonderful Jonah art. And what it's Wendy Beckett, Sister Wendy Beckett talks about this. She's the one that generated it. She says the fish is almost like a hand puppet, opening its jaws, its hand to show Jonah. And Jonah is standing there on the edge of its mouth, and it's very patient. You can see what has happened to Jonah. He's lost his clothes. He's wearing underpants, and that's about all he has on in this picture. And his skin is sort of beat up. So this is another way of thinking of Jonah coming out of the fish. His mood here is, you can decide what you think it is. Is he dejected? Is he sad? Is he resigned? Is he whatever? You can see he's getting some advice from what Wendy Beckett calls a little goose girl. I think that's actually odd, but Wendy, I mean, she knows more than I do. But whoever it is, it's a figure tending a goose. And so that is the deity and so forth. An artist who doesn't have to do words can show us two different moods, either the one slide that we saw a minute ago or the slide that we're seeing right now, and offers us huge space for construing what we think of the fish here. I mean, and Jonah and God and so forth. The mood of the work, again, you could say what it is that you think Jonah here is. This is the beginning of chapter 3, where God says to Jonah, as I said a couple of chapters back, here's what I'd like you to do, go to Nineveh. And so minus his clothes, Jonah is ready to go again. But ask yourself how you would read the mood of Jonah. Is God mad or whatever? Anyway, visuals can do so much that words can't do. An artist construes or constructs is the technical language. The artist, whoever did that one we saw a minute ago, and this one, decides, given the story, how their Jonah will emerge, the way we are deciding how our Jonah will emerge. And that's perfectly valid interpretation. And notice how spacious it is. Okay, I want to just say a few things quickly about chapter 3. So chapter 2 is the time in and the emergence out. Jonah 3, he gets the same directions again. There's a little bit of variation in the language, but hardly anything. Go to Nineveh, proclaim what I tell you. Jonah this time does it. We find out how big Nineveh is. And remember, Nineveh is the equivalent of Moscow. So Jonah, the Ukrainian, is sent to Russia to go to the capital city and help them out. Jonah starts out and he says, I'm looking at verse 4 of chapter 3. Jonah says in Hebrew 4 or 5 words, 40 days, Nineveh turned around. So that's what Jonah says. He says it once in this story. So compared to every other prophet in the Bible, Jonah only spends 4 or 5 words. Jeremiah is saying, oh my gosh, they shouldn't have even called him a prophet. He did so little. Okay, and so that's what he says. And then the storyteller says, at once everybody believed him Jeremiah pulls big clumps of his hair out when he hears that everyone believed his first proclamation. The king takes off his royal outfit, puts on sad clothes. The king decrees that everyone is to be fasting. It turns out that people have already started the fast, not only themselves, but their animals as well. What they are hoping in verse 9, they don't know what God is going to do. They say, maybe this will work. Who knows? God may change God's mind. They don't say God owes us. They don't say this has to happen. They say, maybe this will happen if we ask through fasting. Who knows? So they don't know what's going to happen. And then in verse 10, the storyteller says, God saw what they did. They turned back from their evil ways, and God changed God's mind and revoked the punishment that God had already decreed. So that is the end of chapter 3. We're going to stop on that today because we have more to go. Notice that the last question on your little study guide said, so it feels like maybe the story is over because the threatened thing has been canceled. But I know there is a chapter 4. Okay, so here we are right on time. Good for us. Let's take at least 25 minutes to talk about in your small group. And again, I think I'm going to ask the people who are able-bodied and easily can sit in those chairs to do it. So talk about anything that you want to. I recommend the crimson colored questions. And again, this is you deciding where you are in the story as you read it. Okay, we'll come and check on you.
We're gonna do
We're gonna let
Adele gonna do one group.
Let's see if who all can easily walk out and sit in those chairs. We've got now 5 or 6 people.
We don't wanna lose too many.
Okay, do you want to go with them?
Oh, okay, whatever, yeah.
Is that okay?
Sure,
And then
yeah. So there.
Lori, can you take this side of the room?
Yes.
And Sister Adele, do you mind once again being requested to? So what we would. Thank you, good, because sometimes we forget to turn the recording back on, so we're getting very good at this. What we'd love to do is hear insights, questions, comments, and we will take turns, just again, as you communicate, you're not representing your group, it's anyone who wants to say anything. And we'll start maybe with the group that Lori had. If anybody wishes to say anything on any of the points or something else.
Lord, what could be taking notes?
Okay. But
I forget who said it, but number 8, when we were talking about the relationship of God and Jonah, and that the conclusion was these two have some history. Because it wouldn't just, there's sort of an impression of a silent treatment initially, and then this long flowing prayer that there's some history in this relationship.
Good. And while we're on the topic of the silent treatment used to be a big feature in the convent where, especially if you had a superior who decided to go silent for 2 or 3 days, it was very destabilizing. So, and again, you may know this in other relationships that happen in families. The silent treatment isn't neutral. It's a powerful communication in itself. So anyone want to follow up on?
So just to say, I edged ahead by a verse or two into 4, because all of a sudden we really saw the passionate relationship in the prayer between Jonah and God.
Okay.
So their deep feelings.
Right.
And we were noting that the persistence all the way through of conversion.
Yeah.
So the conversion of the sailors, the conversion of Jonah's turning around back to God.
Right.
Because he had turned his back on God at the beginning.
Yes.
Turns back to God, and then we have the Ninevites turning to God. So
including all their animals.
Yeah.
And we know that there's more ahead.
Yeah.
Mhm. Right.
I knew God knew.
Okay, right. So room for anger. We won't talk about it today, but you know that Jonah who could possibly be feeling great is next gonna be mad.
Yeah.
So that should again invite us to all kinds of things. Okay, good. How about, yes,
Pat brought up the question, so Pat, you wanna voice it? Oh, she brought up the question, well, why was Jonah unhappy if he had really been converted? Why was he so unhappy that doing God's will, he converted all these Ninevites to the Lord, and now he's unhappy about
good.
it?
Let's save we hear the question. It's a great question and you all know it's hovering there. Let's save it for next time.
Oh, I thought-
But we're getting there. No, so we've done today the Psalm and the success.
Okay, well,
So your Jonah could be feeling great. The story could be over, but it isn't over. So that's for us to keep thinking about.
okay.
But other things that you want to say about Jonah in the fish or Adele, your group, does anyone else want to contribute?
I don't know that they do. Pat, you did want something.
Okay, so you're right to go to know that there's one more whole chapter left for Jonah and God to have to continue to work stuff out. But let's let them enjoy their chapter 2 and 3 before we get there. Jonah should be feeling good, but you know he's not. So the question will be why.
So, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So we also spent our time on the prayer, which was interesting. And Sister Ria, I think, was gonna make some comments.
I'm over here.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
Sister Brian.
right.
Well, I had shared that what struck me, one of the things that strikes me is how I'm feeling myself in the story. And what I was thinking of in that section has to do with the verbs that describe that experience, which is my experience. So there's the empathetic part of the sea. That's the empathy side. And now we've got being engulfed. The breakers are sweeping over me. You're driven out either side.
Yeah.
The water's closed, the deep engulfed, the weeds entwined. The verbs are so powerful
Right.
in this section. And for me, drew me right into the heart of the valley. To know, God, that's how I feel sometimes.
And so your Jonah, you connected with the intensity of the verbs and the
Then
images.
The liberation, when
Right.
he says
Right.
that I was delivered. Why wouldn't he have been so distraught that despair would have totally disabled him
Right.
from any pious thought?
Right. Good.
But
And
anyway, I thought
That's,
it was a
yeah, that's
really
very.
powerful section
Right.
just to look at the
Good.
verbs.
So probably from the point of view of what you've just shared, you would be disappointed with scholars who say the prayer doesn't belong in the story. You think it very much belongs there, that we would be deprived if we didn't have the prayer in Jonah 2.
Yeah, it would change the whole
everything.
story.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So a lot of vivid imagery there. Good. Do any Zoomers wish to speak? Again, no pressure. Feel free that you don't have to.
So that's fine. So
Sally.
to her little box.
Somebody has to have that.
That's fine. That's fine.
Sorry. Okay, Sally.
Oh, in terms of Jonah and God's relationship, it came up about why was God not compassionate with Jonah? Why was he making him do these things he didn't want to do? And one of the ones being lowered into the fish's mouth. But in a way, was the fish not his form of compassion? The fish was a safe haven in this very tumultuous sea. And so was that a way of showing the compassion that God had for Jonah? Jonah had to experience God. One way or another, he's going to have to do that. But what a comfortable, safe place to do it would be in the fish's belly.
Good. And here's a place to show our third slide. I was going to save it for a few more minutes, but here's the third slide. If God wills it, there it is.
Okay.
So that's Jonah inside the fish.
Like a
It's
Elvis.
not the same as Sister Raya's Jonah, who is saying intense things, but this Jonah, of course, is not suffering and maybe he has learned something or whatever. So again, visual art opens up a whole range of stuff for us to think about. Would that be your posture in the fish or not?
Yeah.
Observation about that, it looks like an image of a Buddha.
Yes, that's what it's meant to be. Exactly. And it's a little jarring with the text that we have, but who knows? So again, this story is so spacious in terms of what it offers us. You can't say that's wrong, but you might say that's not primarily the Jonah that you picked up on. Though maybe in another moment, your Jonah gets there. So it's a very interesting construction. Again, it's a construction.
Maybe this is the third day that Jonah's in the way.
Okay, that could be, right, could be that, right. And it's at odds with his words. But we know this can come. Doesn't always, but it can. Okay, good. Other things that you want to say? Yes.
Bridge.
I just, to me, it kind of showed God's relationship with Jonah, that Jonah was, he believed in God, he was a servant of God. It wasn't always perfect, and he didn't want to do what God had to do, but God was so loving and merciful, that God said, okay, I'm gonna help you in a very dramatic way to learn that the right way to do things. And so this was sort of an opportunity. It was terrifying and it was horrible, but sometimes I feel like sometimes we have to go through these learning experiences to kind of come out the other side, and then Jonah got it. And so, and said, okay, then he went on his way. So there's just this, God dealing with our own imperfections and still loving us and mercy. And that was
Good, and us
for all
coping
of
too.
us flawed,
Good, exactly, and we know they're not finished yet because we have chapter 4 ahead, so they've had a whole set of adventures, and that's 2 weeks from now, they'll have another one.
And that's
Good.
why Jonah didn't give up on God when he was down there, because I think they still had their relationship. It wasn't
Good.
perfect, but
Again, go back to the original part where Jonah doesn't say anything to God. God says, do this, and Jonah folds his lips and gives God the silent treatment. Again, to be thinking about that, hoping to avoid it, not wanting to do it, not being able to say, no, thank you, I don't choose to do that assignment, and so forth. So the whole range of ways to relate to God. Maureen?
Well, I still don't think Jonah, I don't think Jonah got it, despite all this.
Okay.
First of all, he never says he's sorry that he screwed up originally. And there, so much in this prayer is about, it's all about him.
Okay.
So I'm still, as far as I'm concerned, the jury is still out.
So Jonah has
He better shape up in chapter 4.
Okay, so Jonah has only one chapter left to do. Okay, good. Someone wants to.
Yeah, Bridget has a question.
Oh, good, Bridget.
Well, I didn't think about this so Sally doesn't know we didn't talk about this, but one of the things that I thought about when I was listening to people was, we don't know much about that fish. I mean, what was going on with the fish when Jonah's in there?
Good. Good.
And
so
another thing that the fish could be he or she could be just doing everything fine. But I also thought about the fact that my experience with sharks, I don't have any personal experience, but I just as soon avoid a shark no matter what, because they do so much damage to people.
Right, they do.
I didn't hear anybody say anything about that kind of thing. And it just occurred to me.
Hey, good. Remember last week?
Even the picture, that's nice little picture of that guy in Jonah. Jonah's just sitting there. Everything's just peachy.
Right.
Baloney. When you think about what sharks really do, all the damage they do to people. Even within the last couple of weeks, we've read about people. In fact, it happened down in Pacifica. I
Thank
think
you.
it was Pacifica.
That's very.
The person's, there was a
Yeah.
body found.
Allow it to be something other than a shark as well as to be a shark. Remember last week, Carrie, who was in the Zoom group, the one that works with teenage boys, said to us, don't forget among the characters to allow nature, so the fish, the sea, and so forth, to be active actants as well as the humans to be actants. Okay, that's, Bridget, we can only see sort of your
That was expressive
It
enough.
was very, very memorable. Okay, does anyone else wish to say anything? We've got 2 or 3 minutes left. Adele.
When I was reading the psalm, I came to the line, they who cling to empty folly forsake their own welfare, and I thought, now what is this? Doesn't seem to fit with what
Right.
just went before. Is this a commentary for on himself that he has followed folly? And this is what happens if you don't follow is that a commentary on him?
That could be. Sometimes when I do this one, I have my Jonah saying, some of the others, there's a lot of room for improvement with them as well. So he's sort of commenting on
himself.
It's not the worst, yeah, that
Yeah.
there's worse than him. But again, the invitation for us is to immerse ourselves in this, find ourselves. We're not simply taking it over because we're paying careful attention to the story, but it's very spacious and invites us to examine and do a lot of other things. Any valedictory, Lori?
We dealt with question 8 and we were all really mystified about why, like if Volodymyr Zelensky went to Ukraine and Vladimir Putin just capitulated immediately and said, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. Why this quick?
Okay, good. That's a really crucial question. So why should Jonah, after his great success, be mad? And that really pushes us back to rethink the story and say, so who is Jonah? What does Jonah want? And it's not just Jonah in the story, but it's us construing Jonah. So a good thing to do between now and you have 2 weeks to do it in is ask yourself, why is Book Jonah angry? Can you come up with any possibilities? And why is your Jonah, as you're coming to know Jonah in the story, why is he angry? Because this is Jonah's opportunity, and God's going to try and help him with this to learn something. This isn't just about Ninevites, and it isn't just about sharks, as Bridget would say. It's partly about Jonah. So we're right on the edge of thinking about that. That's a great homeworky thing to take away. Yes, Margaret.
But related to that, what we were talking about was the rapidity of the conversion.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think there's some significance for there's 3 in significance in each. The other question I have is, we can look back on this table and see all the cursory things for the crowd, and whether Jesus was accepted or not accepted by his people, and they threw him overboard too. So and there's the 3 days in the tomb. We have the whole parallel narrative in the New Testament. Where does this fall in the Hebrew Testament? And can you tell us anything about its position?
Jonah is positioned in about the 7th century. A man named Jonah pops up in the story of the Old Testament. Is it our Jonah? It sounds like it is, but he doesn't have these adventures. So the answer to the question is there's no clarity on that. So Jonah can fit anywhere or nowhere or wherever you need him to fit. It's not clear exactly how he's anchored. And again, the ancients don't have our sense of history where they can sort of get it all organized. To them, I think stories are for telling, and it sort of doesn't matter. Some of the historical part, they didn't think about that the way they don't think about science things. They don't say, how could this happen?
I was going to ask you if there was a historical Jonah, because I've always thought of this as not just a fish story, but
Right. The opponent, the Ninevites, are in about the 700s or so. Yeah,
after Jesus,
Syrians, right?
700 after,
No,
before Jesus.
before, yeah. So we're going down in time.
Right, okay.
Right, right. Okay, now, two quick things. We'll get you a study sheet for Jonah 4. We won't do it right away because Sally and Lori and Maureen and I will have to meet and talk about it, but we'll get it to you. And your Zoom address says the wrong date, but we're guaranteed that, or we are promised that the Zoom will work even a week later than it's supposed to work. So we're not going to send a new one. It's 2 weeks from today. So next Monday is Martin Luther King Day. So whatever 2 weeks from today is when it is. Okay, good. But you'll hear from us by then. Thank you so much. Come again.
Sorry about
And
it.
take- Bye.